Newcastle United have arrived in Austria to kickstart our pre-season preparations. Newcastle have announced a new head of football strategy at the club, and doing so have also heavily hinted that Newcastle are still on the lookout for a new sporting director. That's right, Dan Ashworth, Paul Mitchell. Looks like Newcastle will be looking to bring in a new sporting director, and big reports last night that Newcastle have placed a £70+ million bid for the striker Hugo Ekitike, and that Newcastle want both him and Isak up front for the start of next season. Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Toon Tuesdays, your weekly roundup of Newcastle United news. It's been quite a good few Toon Tuesdays of late. The last one was announcing Elanga. Today is talking about Newcastle putting in a huge bid, what would be a new record signing if we are to pull it off for Hugo Ekitike. Before we get into it, be sure to drop a like if you're a fan of the Toon Tuesdays series, and be sure to subscribe so you do not miss out on any future Toon Tuesdays. As I say, I've been doing this for a fair few years now, and it's good to be sat here on a warm but slightly drizzly day talking about Newcastle United. Not too bad, is it? And as I say, kickstart things off, Newcastle have kickstarted their pre-season, arriving in Austria. Great to see the likes of Elanga boarding the plane with Bruno. If you haven't seen it already, and if you don't already have Will Asula on some form of social media, can I suggest that you go and find him? Because I think his content may well be better than what we're actually getting from Newcastle United themselves. Asula on the plane, sat next to Joe Willock. Joe Willock's got a pink bag with him, so he's playing Barbie Girl in the background, filming him doing that. Then he's got Bruno sat on the other side wearing funny sunglasses. Yeah, great fun. It's what we like to see. The players back at it again, wearing the new training tops, which I have to say I am quite a fan of, kind of the grey with the light blue. Why we don't have training sponsor on the front of it, I don't know, and seemingly we'll never know because it's something that we don't appear to be looking to sort out. But anyway, we'll continue to stay positive and happy in this video, although as we have discussed a million times, why Newcastle aren't making use of opportunities like that to bring in more money, especially when we're looking to bring in big signings like Ekitike this summer, I'm not really sure. But there was a little bit of worry when the initial photos of the players getting on the plane came out, because there was a few key players missing, including Isak and Tonali. Thankfully, however, they were spotted yesterday afternoon, and it is just those players coming back that little bit later from international break. Isak turned up, Dan Burn turned up, obviously he'd been away, Anthony Gordon was there, Tonali was there, Bruno was there, Joe Linton, Elanga, everybody was there. So great to see the players out in Austria. Weather looks certainly a lot better than it does here in Newcastle today, and we can get things up and running. Obviously, we played and beat Carlisle 4-0 at the weekend. There's thoughts there could be a behind closed doors friendly while we're out in Austria this week, as we build up to the big, well, I guess start for the fans anyway, a game at Celtic Park on Saturday. Hopefully it should be a good one. Did we play Rangers last season or the season before that? So yeah, it's Austria, Scotland to play Celtic, then off to Singapore for a few games, then it's South Korea, then it's back to Newcastle. And from what Keith Downey has said, I don't think there's a coming back to Newcastle in the middle of it. I think the players are literally hopping between all 4 to 5 destinations before they finish in Newcastle for the 2 games of the Celtic Cup. It's the Friday and the Saturday now before we get the season started. So yes, it is great to see the players back. Looking forward to seeing the videos. If you want to watch the friendlies but you're not going, Newcastle are offering a friendly pass. I think it's £30 to get it, or if you have a membership, it's £20. If you have a Mags Plus, it's £10 or something along those lines, where all friendly games will be available to watch online, probably on NUFC TV, because that does exist again now. So yes, if you want to watch them but you're not going, there is an opportunity to do so. And yes, while they're out on pre-season, could our new head of football strategy be there? That's right, yesterday announced by Newcastle United that Jack Ross has now become Newcastle's head of strategy. If you recognise that name, it's because he is already part of Newcastle United. He was a footballer, played a fair bit in Scotland, managed a fair bit in Scotland, actually managed Sunderland for a little while, but that part we'll forget about. Joined Newcastle in 2023 as one of the development coaches, but as of yesterday, and it's kind of been glossed over a little bit because of the whole Ekitike stuff, has been announced as Newcastle's new head of strategy, which isn't a title you hear every day. He will be, let me have a look. He will be looking to create a constant sporting philosophy across the club and looking after what appears to be loans, emerging talent, but we'll be working with men's, women's and the development side. And if I had to take a guess at kind of what he's doing, it's that following the leave of Paul Mitchell, the big discussion has been that Eddie Howe's taken over. Eddie Howe's the new sporting director. Eddie Howe's going to do everything. When Eddie Howe is out in Austria with the players, hopefully working on an Isak contract, hopefully getting on the phone to Hugo Ekitike, he's probably not checking up on what the academy loan deals are doing. He could be. And I've got no problem with Eddie Howe doing that, by the way. As we get into the season, throughout the season, if he spots a few young players he wants to go and scout or take a look at, great. I think Eddie Howe's massively, massively involved with our transfer policies. But right now, when we're busy, there's a lot of stuff there. Bringing in a Jack Ross to just take that little bit from there, that little bit from there, and then he can do that as his job. Let's split up. The sporting director is this, and this. Eddie Howe, you want to do maybe 4 or 5 of the 10 things, great. Transfers, great. Right, we'll bring in 1 or 2 other people to do that. So that would be what I would think is kind of happening with the promotion. So congratulations to Jack Ross on that one. If you're watching, subscribe, Jack. Help us get to 50k. But yes, interesting to see that's gone on. But what I found was, and I've said that, but what I found was more interesting was the wording that was used in his announcement on the Newcastle website. Because it actually says, and I did write this down and I have got it in front of me, so it actually says that the new head of football strategy, working on, as I say, constant sporting philosophy across the club, will be reporting in to the new sporting director. So if I had to guess, I would say that this has been in the pipeline for a while and that statement used to say would be reporting into Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell's now left, so instead it says reporting in to a new sporting director. So it doesn't say who the sporting director is, it doesn't say that there is a new sporting director, it says a new sporting director. So it looks like that Newcastle, despite the failure, well, somewhat of a failure with Dan Ashworth, I think the certain failure of Paul Mitchell, that Newcastle aren't done with sporting directors and there could well be a new one on the horizon. At the time of saying that, we are still looking to hear about the replacement for Darren Eales as well. Obviously, he was set to leave or has now left the club, obviously due to ill health. Reports are that Newcastle were linked with, I think, an ex-sporting director of Arsenal, as well as a couple of others. We still are waiting to hear on that too. So, yeah, I'm very excited over the transfer stuff, but some of this behind-the-scenes stuff would be nice to kind of have set up and ready to go. This idea of one sporting director in, one out, one in, one out. I was kind of a little bit pleased that they'd given it to Eddie Howe and that could just be settled and done. Jack Ross wants to take a little bit away from him, that's great. If we're going to go down the sporting director route again, can we just make sure we get it right? Because it's stressful having the sporting director leave the day before the window ends. But from all accounts so far, Elanga coming in, potentially Ekitike, it hasn't worked out too bad so far. And as I say, the big news last night was indeed that of a £70+ million bid from Newcastle for Ekitike. Reports from Sky Sports, Fabrizio Romano. I mean, it was Telegraph who I was talking about, I think it was Friday, who said that he was very much a player Newcastle were interested in. It has jumped massively from Friday to Tuesday from a linked interest to now an official bid going in as of last night. Reports are that Newcastle have held talks with Frankfurt for the last week, and that the Ekitike representatives joined Newcastle nearby our Austria camp to discuss not just player terms, but also fees with Frankfurt. Some reports going as far this morning to say that personal terms are very close to being agreed and that a medical could be on the horizon. At this point, when it's just kind of been caught up in the media draft, people are saying a lot of different things. But what Sky Sports have reported on is that the bid is in and that Newcastle are to sign him. But one thing that, don't worry, has not missed my attention, specifically David Ornstein of The Athletic coming out and being very, very confident. Keith Downey said the same, that it is that Newcastle want to have both Isak and Ekitike in that forward line for the start of next season, which is absolutely massive. It shows huge intent, and Keith Downey said a few things of the day. I think both are really interesting points, one of which was kind of the contingency plan of Ekitike, and I think it's smart. I still don't see anything wrong with bringing in, having Isak and then bringing in Wizza. Or, you know what, if Asula's ready to take charge and be more part of this team, I wouldn't have said I was that against him being one of the striker options going into next season. We need a new striker. If the option was to bring in like a backup or a rotation to Isak, I'm not against that. But what Keith Downey went on to call it is more of a contingency plan. You know, again, we want Isak to stay. I'm going to come on to it in a second, the new contract, talk about that a little bit further. But in terms of bringing Ekitike in, we know what Eddie Howe's like. He doesn't always play people straight away. He sometimes likes to bed them in, sometimes likes to take a little bit of time. Having Ekitike come in, get a full season under his belt, if things don't go right with the Isak talks for new contracts, doesn't mean he's leaving now. But in a year's time, in 2 years' time, we've had Ekitike by that point for 12, 18, 24 months. And he's bet himself in. He's become a Premier League striker. He's scoring as many goals as Isak, and he's doing absolutely fantastic. So that was the contingency Keith Downey spoke about. And I agree. I can see that side of it, but I can certainly see the other side of it as well. And that's that. We talk about Tonali, we talk about Isak. Isak, is he going to sign a new deal? We don't know. People are saying that's because maybe he wants to open up his options. He wants to see what's going on. Well, in fact, is Newcastle bringing in Elanga, his teammate from Sweden, who's going to put the ball on a plate for him every week? Is that us showing the intent of bringing in, 100 million euros, we'll call it euros because it sounds more exciting, 70 million, 86 million release clause striker? Is Isak not looking at that going, wow, I want to be part of this team. I want to sign a new deal if this is the kind of team Newcastle United are building. Like there's this idea that the Ekitike coming in is almost like Isak's going to be off in a year. And look, I'm not closed off to either side of these conversations because we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. But you could go the other route. You could easily say, this is Newcastle. Isak could have had a conversation. Keith Downey said that the contract talks have not moved on or have not progressed since they started kind of at the end of the season. Is that because Isak's gone, I don't know, I might want to leave next year? Or is it because he's gone to Newcastle? You show me why I should sign a new deal. You've not signed any players for three consecutive transfer windows. You want me to nail myself down for another 2-3 years to potentially be running the line 50, 60 games a season because you've not replaced Callum Wilson. Asula isn't ready yet. Is this the exact opposite of that? Newcastle are saying, look, Isak, we are going to do exactly what you've asked us to do, and we're going to go out there and we're going to find you someone who can help share the workload, can play up front with you, can play as a number 10 behind you, can move out onto the left. You can push out the left because sometimes you like to play out there. That's not really an avenue of discussion that we've really gone down, but I really hope that that's the case, and that in fact, because of Ekitike coming in, it will, the buzz of pre-season, Newcastle bringing in these players, we still want a centre-back, we still want a goalkeeper, I'd still like to see more happening as a potential centre midfielder as well. Is that not, in fact, hopefully, for me, going to entice Isak to get that extra year you know what? I am confident in my future here. I do want to play for Newcastle United longer. That was, if you would like to see Isak and Ekitike both up front next season, and Isak get that deal signed, drop a like on this video, because that is massively what I would like to see happen. As I say, I appreciate both sides of the story, but it's striker is the priority. Ekitike is the man we're looking at. But there is, as I say, there's other positions. It would seem that Trafford, the goalkeeper, is every day it's 99% done. I was listening to? I actually laughed at this. I think it was Paul from the Toon review was saying that it's back in the old days when you're trying to get your internet loaded up and it goes to 99%, and then it takes ages for AOL to load that final 1%. Is that the Trafford deal? Because it certainly feels that way. Scalvini, the centre-back, is one that we're reportedly very interested in. It would seem that Newcastle are very much focused on Ekitike right now. Keith Downey also spoke about this, the idea that Newcastle always are kind of going from one player at a time. Look, if it works, if the player needs the attention, like we gave Elanga so much attention and it worked and we got him. If we give Ekitike all the attention and it works and we get him, I don't mind the step-by-step player-to-player process as long as we don't run out of time. Because there isn't that long left. It's like a month, and it is about a month now till the season starts. So as long as we think we've got time to get through every player before the transfer window ends, or even the season starts, then I'm happy to roll with it. But yes, as I say, if you are excited to hopefully see future news on Ekitike and an Isak contract, drop a like on this video. Thoughts and comments down below on the potential of a new sporting director. At the end of the day, I think it's probably what we need, but it's someone who is going to understand the roles that are going with it. If Eddie Howe wants to keep transfers, that's fine. Paul Mitchell didn't want that. He wanted to be the transfer, so it just didn't work. Speak to Eddie Howe, see what he wants. Let's make it actually, let's do it right. And yes, hope you guys have enjoyed that video. Thankfully, it was spitting in the rain when I started. It's stopped now, which I am even happier about. Thanks for watching, guys. As I say, be sure to subscribe. Videos are coming thick and fast at the moment, pretty much every day, on constant updates on transfers and everything else in the world of Newcastle. So be sure to drop a like, subscribe, enjoy your night, and I'll catch you later.